Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have just come back from our trip to Halifax. I have never been east in Canada past maybe Quebec City, and I've only seen Ontario and Quebec and very little of both of them. So we're kind of making little micro trips around the country, and I'm hoping to see more of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the 10 favorite things that I did in Halifax that I would recommend should you find yourself there, but also just kind of like a vlog recap for me. And then I'm going to tell you my impressions, as well as a few things that I wish I would have done had I more time and resources, or we couldn't really get around too easily because some things are further apart. And at the end, I will show you a little book haul of the things that I got. The very first thing that I absolutely love, and it's memorable, but it's also like one of the main reasons we went there, is the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. I made a video recently about falling in love with folk artist Maud Lewis. So going to see her artwork live was just incredible, but most importantly, I got to see the little house. So I mentioned in my other video that there was a huge restoration project and conservation where they moved the actual house where Maud Lewis and Everett Lewis used to live into the museum. And it took a lot of work, a lot of people, and it's so tiny. I had no idea that it was going to be that small. I saw the movie Maudie, and I knew that it was tiny, but to imagine two people living there their entire lives, it was incredible to see all of her paintings and just everything about Maud Lewis. Amazing, so worth it. If you have a sort of artist pilgrimage journey, say add Maud Lewis to your list. She is superb. I love her so much. I will never stop reading about her or just admiring her artwork. But we had a nice surprise at the art gallery where we discovered a new artist, and now I'm in love again. Totally different. His style is more surrealist, but his name is Mitchell Wiebe. He has had his artwork in Vancouver or British Columbia before, and now in Halifax, and they created this studio for him downstairs where he keeps working. So we got to meet the artist as well, and he's so eccentric and fun, and his paintings are just so beautiful. Stuff of dreams, but they have craftsmanship and artistry in them. It's one of those where it's not that kind of art where you just paint something random and then have to explain what it is, but it's also it's got this beautiful style to it and craft, but it's not super hyper realistic. I don't know, it's so beautiful. I couldn't walk away from the art gallery without getting something about him, because I wanted to capture some of his artwork and to have a little bit of information about him. Maybe in the future I'll do an artist spotlight. The second place that blew my mind was the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. So this is a lot of ships, anything to do with nautical things. As you walk in, there's even a light from a lighthouse, there's ropes, and there's even a preserved old store that used to sell things to fishermen and sailors. And it's preserved the same way it was historically, with all of the things in it. And you can smell the pine tar when you walk in, and it's the most beautiful smell in the world. The whole museum was incredible. So many ships, so many fun facts. They do have a section on the Titanic as well. Halifax has kind of a big feature of Titanic things, just because a lot of the bodies from the Titanic wreck have been buried in Halifax, and I'll mention that a bit later. But in this museum you do get a lot more things about the Titanic as well in a little corner. And it's right by the waterfront, so you get to see a lot of the ocean outside of the windows. And what's incredible too is across the street there's a little store called Strange Adventures, which is so quirky and cute and has a lot of comic books. But I thought I'd mention that because it's right across the street, so it's kind of like a cool little bundle. The third place that we absolutely loved was the Nova Scotia Museum of Natural History. This was actually the very first place I went to right when we got off the plane. We checked in and then we went to the Natural Museum. What's really noteworthy about this one is that they have a tortoise there that's 102 years old. He was born in the 20s in Florida, brought to Canada in the 40s, and he's been there ever since. And they take him out once a day outside or through the museum so you can see him interact. Otherwise, he's just kind of sitting under his little light lamp. It was funny to think about all of the things he's been alive for. Like, this boy was alive during the Great Depression and World War II, and he's probably been alive through so much of human history, but he's so unaware of it because he's just chilling under his light lamp and having a good time. And they have little plushies of him, and he's kind of like the superstar of the museum. But they also had a huge exhibit right now on dinosaurs, and I'm slowly reading my way through a lot of dinosaur books, and they had this really cute reading nook where you could just sit there and read about dinosaurs, and had dinosaurs books. And I took a moment, we actually spent a lot of time in that corner, but there are just so many dinosaurs and so many fun facts, and I just loved the experience of walking through this museum in general. They also featured some seabirds, which is something I'm really into right now as well. I'll make a future video very soon about that. Now, the fourth thing I'm going to mention, and this is a cluster of things. So this is bookstores and the main library. We ended up going to the main library on the first or second day just to kind of browse around. You know, we saw the front. It was a beautiful building. We looked inside, saw what it was like, and we left. But the second day we were there was pouring. And because it was so rainy outside, we wanted to seek refuge somewhere that was still fun and pleasant. So we walked into the library and we spent some good time there, maybe 2 or 3 hours. They have 5 levels. They have some exhibits as well, some to do with the world wars, some to do with the immediate community. They have a lot of programming. So if you have little ones, for example, they have a lot of children's playtime there. Really nice to see kind of a different library in a different city. And the first bookstore we initially went to was called Bookmark. This was right across the street from where we were staying. It was really nicely organized. It had a lot of seaside things. It had a bust of Shakespeare, a lot of books, new books and local things. That's what I loved about it too. It's because you get to see kind of books you wouldn't really find elsewhere, or like you wouldn't have heard about them unless you were a local, and then you can look them up later. We only had carry-on, so I couldn't buy all of the books I wanted to. Another bookstore that we went to was also a cafe. So this was called Trident Cafe, Fine Used Books. And people were sitting there just studying, reading, chilling with their coffee, but they had a lot of books. The ambience there is really nice. Another bookstore that we absolutely loved was called Agricola Street Books. This was probably my favorite environment because the entire store was made out of wood, and the smell, kind of similar to the pine tar from the Maritime Museum, it was just so intoxicating. It smelled like one of those like brand new cottage houses that people build in the mountains or something. It smelled so wooden and earthy. And it had so many new books, and it was such a cute local bookstore. I didn't buy anything from there, but I really, really loved the environment, and I really wish that was kind of like our local bookstore because it's so cool. And then the last bookstore that we checked out was called Woozles, which is such a cool name. And this was a children's bookstore. This we checked out on the very last day, right before we went to the airport. And it was decorated really nicely for children, and they had a cute reading chair. Really loved my book shopping and book browsing experience. The fifth thing that we did, which I loved, was Dartmouth. So here we took the ferry to go across, and my understanding is that Dartmouth used to be its own town or its own city before it kind of merged with Halifax. And they're both relatively small. And I say relatively because I'm from Toronto, so everything felt a lot smaller. But taking the ferry across was a lot of fun. My husband really wanted to see a very specific intersection that was mentioned in a folk song or something like that. But then we checked out some other little stores and little things. Very cute, very cozy. It is a bit of a day trip. It's kind of a journey because you have to get there and then spend some time there, get the ferry back. Did get to see some jellyfish in the water, and that was pretty extraordinary to just see them out and about in the wild. The sixth thing I'm going to mention is the Halifax Public Gardens. So the gardens were right across the street from where we stayed as well. I should probably mention we stayed at the Lord Nelson Hotel. And it's such a good spot because it's across from the gardens and right in the downtown area. So you get to walk to everything that I've mentioned. Like at this point, besides the sort of ferry to go to Dartmouth, everything was walkable. The Halifax Public Gardens are so incredibly well gardened and decorated with statues and adorned with all kinds of beautiful flowers and trees, and there's a little hut or house that's like really old, but it's been turned into a cafe. There's so many ducks. It kind of had the vibes of that Boston Public Park where they have the little statues of Make Way for Ducklings. If you like flowers and nature and you just want to chill somewhere nice, that's a very good spot. We passed by there more than once because it was like a nice spot to just relax in between things. The seventh thing I'm going to mention is the Museum of Immigration, Pier 21. So this will have more of an impact on you if you do have kind of Canadian ancestry or people who have stepped foot on Canadian soil a few generations ago and you're looking for records. There is something sort of heritage about it for people who have a few generations here. It's kind of like the Canadian Ellis Island, only people don't stay here. They just kind of arrive here and then go elsewhere. So yeah, it was just such an interesting experience to see this Museum of Immigration. I didn't personally have roots or ancestry there, but it was just such an interesting thing to see, especially since it was historical, the early 20th century, and it had a lot of vintage items that were really cool. The eighth thing I'm going to mention is Point Pleasant Park. So this is where my friend really wanted to take us, and she was not wrong. We loved it there. It is such a huge park. It's beautiful. It's got paths so you can walk wherever you want, and it's right by the ocean. So there are a lot of ducks and a lot of wildlife, a lot of birds. The scenery is absolutely stunning. There aren't too many people there, but there's still, you know, some life. One of the things we noticed was that in Halifax, there didn't seem to be a lot of squirrels, because in Toronto, there are squirrels everywhere. But here, they only had the teeny tiny brown squirrels and a lot of crows. We saw so many crows, and it was just fun to see nature and the ocean and just relax. It was a very nice day. It is a bit of a walk, but it's worth doing, and it's so much fun. So the ninth thing I'm going to mention is again a cluster of things. So these are like tiny trinket stores, little bakeries and little things. One of the stores I loved so much is called Jennifer's of Nova Scotia, I think, something like that. I'll post it here. They have a farmer's market, which we went to right next to the Immigration Museum, and while they were selling baked goods and foods and stuff, they also were selling so many artistic things, paintings, jewelry, all kinds of little trinkets. When we arrived with the ferry in Dartmouth, also there was a farmer's market there too, or a little trinket market with little things like vintage items or books, or even local authors were selling their own books that you wouldn't otherwise see. So very cool. Another one was Peace by Chocolate. Well, this isn't a trinkety store, it is a chocolate store, but it has a huge history where there's a documentary, a book involved, Syrian refugees, the ways chocolate was used in this person's life. It's got a huge story behind it. But again, it's just like little things here and there. There was a Maritimes Crafts and Hobbies store, kind of miniature boats and airplanes that people could paint, and all of the supplies you need for that. And then there was Baz's record shop. This we kind of went to more for my husband. He really likes music and records and vinyls. And they had vintage things. They had newer things like vinyls of Taylor Swift. Yeah, all of these trinket stores and crafty things are all over the place in this environment. And then the last thing I'm going to mention, which is number 10, and it kind of goes hand in hand with this one, is that you do want to wander around and linger in places. So we kind of took a lot of walks and just got lost, you know, or we walked aimlessly, and that's how we found a lot of really cool things. We found little free libraries both by the waterfront and through the streets where people lived, and that was just fun to see. There was this Robert Burns statue right in front of the gardens, and I just sat there with some pigeons and had my morning coffee, and it was just so memorable. We sat down by the waterfront several times just to relax, you know, just take a chair, sit in the shade, and look at the ocean. Another neighborhood we saw was called Quinpool, This was on our last day, and it's again just little shops. Those are the 10 things we actually did. Here are some things that I wish we would have done. So I wish we would have gone to Peggy's Cove. Peggy's Cove is where they have the famous lighthouse that people see in pictures of Halifax. But you know, it was actually an hour drives away, and we don't have a car and we don't drive, so it felt like a bit of a journey, which we decided not to take. I wish we would have gone even further out and seen stuff like puffins. I don't know if it's mating season right now, but you know, to see some like really cool birds out and about besides seagulls would have been really fun. Seeing on the very last day advertisements for, you know, taking a ferry to PEI, I didn't know we could do that. So that would have been something to know about, to kind of cluster in more things in that region. Another one was a Titanic cemetery. This was much further away from where we were staying, and we didn't get to do that, but it would have been cool to walk through that cemetery. Ghost and historic tours that were organized by people who live there. Maybe that would have been worth it. We didn't get to do that. Another thing that I didn't get to see well was Dalhousie University. Especially if you're considering going to university there, or you have a kid who might want to go there. Passed by King's College at one point. We didn't get to explore the campus properly or see their libraries or anything like that, so that would have been really cool. The last thing that I'm going to mention, which I've just found out about now that I've seen her video, but Ariel Bissett is opening up her bookstore, her bookmobile, and apparently she was going to be there, and we missed her by this much. I really wish I could have met her or seen her bookshop. It would have been really cool. It sucks, but maybe that's another good reason to go back one day. My overall impressions: beautiful, worth seeing, a lot smaller than I expected. It's a lot slower than something like Toronto, which is always like go, go, go. It's sort of a sleepier place. People are calmer. Things are slower. Like even in the morning when I woke up, things didn't open until a bit later. So I really wanted to get my morning coffee and just start my day, but things were just kind of slowly opening up. It's kind of a more like dormant place, and the people there are so nice. Everyone's been so kind, just people on the street, people in the stores. They had a lot of community things. Like the amount of things we passed by that had posters about like cozy readings of Alice in Wonderland, or they had an Indian kind of gathering in a park for 2 days where people were just sharing artwork and Indian cuisine. Yeah, a lot of community service things, like not just in the library where we spent a lot of time, but just in general, just a lot more community building things, which I think is easier in a smaller place. But it was just nice to see people show up. Highly recommend if you're planning a trip, and hopefully you'll use some of the things I mentioned in this video. But now I'm going to get to the little books that I got. So the first book I got is called Nova Scotia Folk Art by Ray Cronin. This is a book that I had pre-ordered, but they ran out of stock. So to get it from actual Halifax was kind of cool. I had intended to buy this anyway. This will make a good addition to my folk art videos in the future, and I'm really excited. This is the same author who wrote about Maud Lewis, and I've mentioned it in that Maud Lewis video. Really, really happy that I got this. From the art gallery, I got the Mitchell Wiebe Bad Magic. This is about his exhibition in BC. So this is not about his current exhibition in Halifax, but I just wanted to have something of his. From the Maritime Museum, I got R. Bruce's McDonald's Never Say Pig, Pog, I don't know. I haven't actually read it yet, but I don't know what this stands for. But it's a book about sailor superstitions. So this will be kind of fun to browse through. It's illustrated as well, and it's got sailor superstitions, which is always fun. From the art gallery, I also got this Maud Lewis Creating an Icon by Ray Cronin, the same author. But the reason I got this one is that it's printed by Gaspereau Press. I love Gaspereau so much. Where I work, we actually have a huge connection to Gaspereau. We're actually kind of like united in some way because we focus a lot on printing history, and I really wanted to get something Gaspereau Press from actual Halifax, and to have this kind of bundle of Maud Lewis, Gaspereau Press. I saw some other books in the stores from Gaspereau, just amazing publisher and printer. From the Rare bookstore that I mentioned, I got Rainer Maria Rilke's Rodin. So this is his impressions of Rodin. I have a paperback of this, But I saw this, and it's hardcover vintage, really cool, and it's got an inscription as well from the person who previously owned this in 55. I couldn't walk away from it. It was kind of worth it. And then a little book that I got by E. Nesbitt, Where You Want to Go To and Other Unlikely Tales. This is just very tiny. It's cute, and I've never seen anything like it anywhere else. It was printed in 93, so I don't know, I just thought it was cute, and I didn't want to walk away from it. And then the last store that I bought something from was Woozles, the children's bookstore. And I saw this one book, which seems local. So this is children's literature by a local artist and a local writer. Even though I think she is originally from New Brunswick, she does write about things set in Nova Scotia. So this is called Wild Ghost Chase by Deborah Toogood. And the cover drew me in because there's a ghost of a pirate here. And it's got piracy and treasure, and it's a children's book, and it's local to Nova Scotia, so I thought this would kind of capture the spirit of the place. And then the last book is Mi'kmaq Moons. So this is the indigenous group that is indigenous to Nova Scotia. I made a video on Inuit literature only, for example, and that was a lot to read. So I thought I should have at least one book about the indigenous group from Nova Scotia, and to learn a little bit about them and their culture and their artwork. And it's so beautiful. It's illustrated, it's got a lot of stories and background, and it's a mixture of stories, art, and history. I'm so excited to get to this. If you intend to go to Halifax, I hope maybe this is a guide or is useful for you. This is more of a diary entry for me. Thank you very much for watching if you've made it this far, and I will see you in a future video. Bye!